They thought they could discard you like an empty cup, but they never expected the silence of that cup to echo louder than any scream. My friends, listen closely, because this might hit you harder than you expect. You were not thrown away because you were worthless. You were thrown away because they thought you didn't know your worth. Big difference. See, people don't always walk away because they don't need you. They walk away because they assume you'll stay available, quiet, waiting. And the cruelest part, most of them don't think twice about it. But what if I told you, the silence they left you with can become the very thing that haunts them? Before we go deeper, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Every week, we unpack the kind of truth that turns heartbreak into clarity and silence into power. Stick with me, because what I'm about to tell you will flip the entire game. Hey folks, imagine this for a second. Imagine you're a fire, bright, warm, alive. But the people around you only come close when they're cold. The moment they feel warm enough, they walk away, never once asking what it costs the fire to keep burning. Then one day, you stop burning for them. Not out of spite, but because you're tired of being a convenience, and suddenly they feel the cold again. But now, your fire isn't theirs anymore. That's when panic sets in. That's what happens when you go silent, not as a tactic, but as a truth. They expect you to scream, cry, beg, explain. They expect drama. They've rehearsed it all. But when you vanish quietly, calmly, without a fuss, they don't know how to process it. Because silence, real silence, the kind that doesn't wait for their attention, that's not weakness, that's power, that's evolution. That's a locked door they no longer have a key to. Quote, I once heard, and it stuck with me, never give someone the satisfaction of watching you break. Let them wonder why you're not broken at all. That, my friends, is the art of becoming unreachable. Not because you blocked them, not because you screamed, I'm done, but because your peace became louder than your pain. And let's break a lie while we're at it. The world tells you that if someone leaves you without explanation, the best move is to disappear too. But the truth? Disappearing isn't enough anymore. Everyone disappears. Everyone ghosts. Everyone plays that card. What shakes them isn't that you're gone. It's that you're here, but emotionally distant. You didn't leave. You just stopped bleeding energy in their direction. You stopped reacting. You stopped performing your pain. And they can feel it. You see, people aren't scared when you block them. They're scared when you stop trying. When they can't feel your energy anymore. When your silence isn't angry, it's peaceful. That's what hits them in the chest at 2 a.m. when their feed is dry, their phone is quiet, and they realize you've stopped orbiting around them. So don't fall into the trap of thinking your silence isn't working just because they haven't come crawling back. Sometimes, the scariest thing for someone who discarded you is realizing you never planned on returning, that the door isn't locked, it's gone. Stay with me because this journey we're about to go on will show you exactly how to shift from being discarded to being unforgettable. Not by chasing, but by becoming untouchable. And if you feel even a flicker of fire still inside you, drop this in the comments right now. I evolve in silence. That's your affirmation today. Say it, show it, live it, and don't forget, press the like button and subscribe because we're just getting started. Number 1. They didn't think you'd stay gone. They left thinking you'd come back like always, but this time, silence wasn't a pause. It was a door closing for good. My friends, let's be real. When they walked away, they didn't do it with tears in their eyes or hesitation in their heart. No, they did it like tossing out yesterday's news, like your presence was casual, like your loyalty was disposable. They didn't even look back, because in their mind, you'd be back. You always came back. maybe not in words, but in energy, in watching their stories, in replying after a few weeks, in sending that soft, "Hey, just checking in." You've been trained, haven't you? Conditioned to return, because they made you believe that silence is temporary. And this is where the game begins. Imagine a dog that always returns home, no matter how many times it's left outside in the rain, no matter how many doors are slammed, no matter how much cold it's forced to feel, it still finds its way back. That's how they saw you. Not as a person, but as something dependable, forgiving, predictable. So when they walked, they didn't fear losing you. They assumed you'd wait by the emotional door like you always did. But folks, what happens when the dog doesn't come back? What happens when it finds a new path, one that doesn't lead back to their door? That's what they never expected. They didn't think you'd stay gone. They thought your silence was just another performance, that you'd cool off, lick your wounds, miss them too hard, and then, right on time, you'd crawl back into their world. They built their power on your pattern. And now, without it, they're disoriented. They're pacing the same emotional hallway, wondering why the door hasn't creaked open again, why your energy hasn't circled back, why the silence isn't cracking. But here's the truth. They don't know how to handle a version of you that doesn't bend. You see, what people fear isn't your absence. What they fear is your absence with peace, your absence with no intention to return. They fear the day you stop reacting, because your reactions, those texts, those double takes, those emotional check-ins, those were their supply. And when that supply runs out, their illusion of control starts to crumble, quietly, slowly, but deeply. The fear creeping in now. It's not that you're gone. It's that you're gone differently. No warning, no explosion, no grand goodbye. Just gone. And folks, that kind of silence, it's a storm in disguise. That's when their chest tightens. That's when they check your feed, not because they miss you, but because they need to confirm you're still spinning in their orbit. But you're not. You're not orbiting. You're not floating. You're grounded. And they can't find your gravity anymore. You might be thinking, why did they assume I'd stay available forever? Why didn't they fear losing me when they walked away so easily? Here's why. They mistook your softness for stupidity. They confused your loyalty for dependence. And most of all, they assumed that just because you loved them deeply, you wouldn't know how to live without them. But now you're teaching them the difference between love and access. And yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's hard to be the one who stays silent. It's hard to sit with your healing while they pretend nothing happened. It's hard to not reach out when the silence feels like punishment for something they did. You want to scream, "Do you even care?" But silence isn't about proving anything to them. It's about proving something to yourself. That you no longer chase what's unworthy of your energy. That you've finally walked away not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Quote, "I'll drop here that hits home. The first time you leave is bravery. But the first time you stay gone, that's evolution. That's the version of you they never planned for. That's the twist they didn't write into their script. And let me tell you, that's when the regret creeps in. Not immediately, not with fireworks, but slowly, like a cold draft under a closed door. That regret, it whispers, it pokes. It reminds them that you're no longer waiting. You're gone. And it's wild, isn't it? How they treated you like an option until you stopped being available, until you didn't send the text, until you didn't watch the story, until your silence became more than distance. It became indifference. Not coldness, not bitterness, just clarity. And that kind of clarity, it doesn't slam doors, it erases them. So if you're sitting in your silence, wondering if it's working, wondering if they notice, wondering if it matters, hear me, it does. Not because you're hurting them on purpose, but because you've finally stopped hurting yourself to be seen. You've stepped off the emotional treadmill. You're no longer performing availability. And that shakes their core, because now they don't get to play the hero in the reunion. They don't get to say, "I knew you'd come back." There is no comeback. There's just growth. Quiet, consistent, powerful growth. You were never weak for staying before. You were just hoping love could be enough. But now you're wise enough to know that love without respect is self-betrayal, and every moment of silence is a moment you pour back into yourself. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. So let them wonder, let them scroll, let them pace, while you evolve. And if you're still with me, still feeling this message deep in your gut, drop it in the comments right now. I stay gone in peace. Let them know. Let yourself know. Show the world you're not afraid to be the one who doesn't come back. Stay with me, because up next we're going deeper into why silence isn't enough anymore, and what kind of stillness truly flips the script. Number 2. Your silence isn't weakness, it's a mirror. The loudest pain is the one that doesn't beg to be heard, it just exists, and echoes back everything they tried to ignore. Let's get something straight, my friends. Silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's loaded with everything they don't want to face. Your silence, it's not weakness, it's not surrender. It's not some desperate tactic to be missed. No, it's a mirror. A clear, calm, unapologetic mirror that doesn't bend, doesn't break, and doesn't offer them the emotional comfort they've grown addicted to. When you stop reacting, you stop being their emotional puppet, and that, folks, is when they start to feel the real burn. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine someone standing in front of a mirror every day, fixing their hair, adjusting their clothes, always confident in how they look. Now imagine one day that mirror stops showing their reflection. It's still there, same place, same shape, same frame, but it's blank. Nothing, no feedback, just stillness. That person will go mad, trying to figure out what's wrong. They'll wipe it, shake it, even talk to it. Because it's not just about seeing themselves, it's about being seen. That's what you were, their reflection, their reassurance, their measure of power. And now, you've gone still. You see, when you were available, emotionally, mentally, energetically, they felt validated. Every time you replied, every time you explained, every time you got hurt and showed it, they felt in control. But now, you're no longer handing out emotional updates. You're no longer offering closure. You're no longer saying, "This hurt me," because silence has taken its place. And it's not an angry silence. It's neutral, calm. That's what hits the hardest, because anger still means you care. Calm means you're done. And that's terrifying to someone who used to rely on your chaos. They thrived on it, the fights, the long messages, the "we need to talk." All of it was part of a dance, a pattern, a game they thought they mastered. But now the board is flipped, and you're not even playing. But what if they don't even notice I'm silent, you might ask? Oh, my friend, they notice, but not the way you think. They don't always rush back. They don't always say sorry. But inside, they start to feel like something's missing. The energy they used to expect from you, the attention, the reaction, the emotional fireworks, it's just gone. You became quiet. Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you finally wanted to heal yourself. And here's where it gets real. They start looking for your reaction in everything. They might post something subtle, a song, a quote, a throwback. They want to see if it shakes you, if you'll break the silence, if the old version of you is still lingering in the background. But your silence now, it's not passive, it's powerful. Because you're not ignoring them to provoke anything, you're just done offering free access to your emotional world. Quote, that lands hard here. When you stop giving explanations, people start searching for meaning in every shadow. And that's the truth. When they can't read you, they start questioning everything. They used to feel safe in your reactions. Now they feel exposed, uncomfortable, because for the first time you're not giving them anything to work with. And let's not lie, this part is hard for you too. Because silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you're learning to sit with what you feel, without handing it to someone who doesn't value it. You're breaking the cycle. And breaking cycles, that's uncomfortable, it's quiet, it's lonely, but it's also the first real step toward peace. They don't know how to handle your peace. That's the truth, because they counted on your emotional reactions to guide their next move. Now, they're stuck. They don't know what to do. And in that stillness, they start to see themselves. Not through your eyes, but through your absence. That's the power of silence as a mirror. It doesn't scream, it reflects. It reflects every careless word they said, every moment they took you for granted, every time they ignored your pain. And when there's no emotional noise to drown it out, their own guilt and confusion rise to the surface. That's what they didn't see coming. Most people expect silence to be a phase, a pause, a protest. But this kind of silence, it doesn't demand change, it is the change. It's the declaration that you are no longer playing your role in their script. You're not waiting in the wings, hoping to be called back into their life. You've walked off the stage and taken your light with you. And you know what else? They don't know how to rebuild that illusion of control without your part in it. They thought they could replace you. Find someone else. Move on. But replacements don't bring the same energy. They don't bring the same soul, because you weren't just a person in their life. You were an experience. And now that you're gone, everything else feels muted, dull, unstable. That's the storm that brews in your silence. So the next time you wonder if they care, understand that your silence has become their mirror, and what they see in it now, it's not you crying, begging, or chasing. It's themselves, alone, standing in front of a reflection that no longer reflects them. And that's the real consequence. You didn't disappear. You evolved. You stopped performing. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped filling every silence with desperate words. Now you let the silence speak for you, and trust me, it speaks volumes. If you're still here, still with me, still holding this truth deep in your chest, I want you to type this in the comments right now. My silence reflects truth. Say it, show it, let them feel it. Let yourself feel it, because you're not doing this to punish them, you're doing this to free yourself. And stay close, my friends, because in the next section, we're going to talk about why they were prepared for drama, but never for your dignity. And that's where the cracks begin to form. Number 3, they were prepared for drama, not dignity. They braced for chaos, but never expected calm. And now your peace is the storm they can't weather. Let's not pretend they didn't see it coming. They knew you'd be hurt. They knew they broke something. And even if they didn't say it out loud, somewhere in their mind, they rehearsed the scene, your reaction, the crying, the calls, the messages, the confusion. They knew your heart was big, and they thought they could break it without consequence, because in their mind, that heartbreak would still orbit around them. It always had. So they prepared, not for accountability, but for emotional drama, the kind they could dodge, the kind they could twist, the kind that made you look crazy and them look calm. That's the game they've played before. That's the game they thought you'd play again. But this time, you didn't give them the explosion. You gave them silence. And folks, let me tell you, they don't know what to do with that. Imagine a firefighter showing up to a burning building only to find it still, quiet, no smoke, No flames, just silence. They brought their gear. They were ready to extinguish your fire. They had their speech ready, their excuses, their justifications, their blame shifting. But there's no fight happening. There's just you, sitting in peace, maybe sipping tea, maybe reading a book. And now they're standing there, looking foolish, because they came prepared for war and found a garden instead. And that unsettles them. You see, people who mistreat you expect you to break loudly. That's what makes them feel like they still have control. Because if you're screaming, crying, begging, they can say, see, they're still attached, they still care, I still matter. But when you don't react the way they expect, they lose their footing. That calm dignity, it throws everything out of balance, because now they're the one feeling confused. They're the one wondering, why aren't they reacting? Why didn't they block me? Why didn't they send a final message? That quiet confidence eats away at them, because for the first time, they don't get to wear the victim badge. There's no performance, no emotional fireworks, just silence, stillness, power. Let's break a lie while we're here. They weren't ready for your healing. They were only ready for your pain. They built their plan around you breaking down, not leveling up. They knew how to handle chaos. But peace, that's a language they don't speak, because peace means you've stepped out of the emotional arena. You've stopped fighting for the connection. You're not trying to win. You've already won by not needing the game at all. And here's what's wild. They might even try to provoke a reaction just to get you back into character. A little poke here, a cryptic message there, a story posted by accident. You know the drill, because drama is familiar. It's safe for them. They'd rather fight with you than face the silence without you. Quote that lands here. They expected a scene, but you gave them a lesson. And folks, your dignity, that is the lesson. That's what shakes them. Not that you're angry, but that you're not. Not that you're gone, but that you left with grace. Because when someone hurts you and you still choose composure over chaos, that's real power. That's emotional clarity. That's shadow growth. They can't manipulate that. They can't spin it. They can't defend against it. Because it's not confrontational. It's neutral. It's not reactive. It's intentional. And here's the kicker. Your calm forces them to face what they did. Not through your words, but through your absence of reaction. And trust me, that reflection, it's brutal. They wanted you loud, emotional, messy, because that's what they understood. That's what gave them leverage. But now you're silent, not to be petty, not to punish, but because your energy is too valuable to waste. You're choosing peace over explanation, healing over justification, and they're left spinning. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how someone can throw a rock into water expecting waves, but instead, nothing? Just a quiet ripple that disappears in seconds. That's what it's like now. They try to disturb your energy, but it doesn't respond the way it used to. You've become still. You've become a quiet ocean, and the rock just sinks. And that, my friends, is where the shift happens, because silence backed by pain is temporary, but silence backed by healing? That's transformation. That's when you're no longer trying to be heard. You're just living. You're not making a statement anymore. You're just becoming one. It's difficult, I know. You probably still have moments where you want to reach out, say something, release the pressure. That's human. But here's the thing. Every time you resist the urge to break your silence just to feel seen, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you rewrite the story. You move from survival to sovereignty, and they feel that shift deeply, even if they'll never admit it. They're not used to seeing you strong. They're not used to not having access to your pain. And now they're realizing that your silence isn't a tactic. It's a boundary. And that boundary, it's made of steel. You've stopped defending your value. You've stopped explaining your heart. You've stopped begging to be understood. And now your presence, or lack of it, forces them to face the parts of themselves they kept hiding behind your reactions. That's the mirror. That's the gift of dignity. You didn't disappear. You didn't explode. You evolved. Quietly, strategically, and beautifully. So if you're still with me, still holding this truth, I want you to pause right now and write this in the comments. My calm is my comeback. Say it. Show it. Let the world feel it. Because you're not the same version of you they discarded. You're stronger, softer, sharper, and if that makes them uncomfortable, good. Because up next, we're going even deeper into why disappearing isn't enough anymore, and why surface-level silence no longer carries the sting they expect. Stick with me. We're not done yet. Number 4. Disappearing is predictable. Detachment isn't. Disappearing may confuse them for a moment, but true detachment? That's what rewrites the ending they never saw coming. Let's talk real for a second, my friends, because I know a lot of you out there are hurting quietly, telling yourself, maybe if I vanish, they'll finally feel it. You delete the chats. You block the number. You disappear from their life like smoke slipping out the cracks. And sure, it feels powerful at first, like you took the last word without saying a thing. But here's the truth that stings a little. Disappearing doesn't cut like it used to. Not in today's world. Everyone disappears, everyone ghosts, everyone leaves. It's become the easiest trick in the book, the emotional equivalent of slamming the door and thinking it made a statement. But the truth, they've seen it before. They were ready for it. Because people who operate from ego, people who discard others without a blink, they don't fear absence anymore. They prepare for it. They expect the silence. They've played this game with others. You leave, then you cool off, then you come back, or they reach out just in time to reel you back in. It's a dance, and they know the steps. That's why disappearing alone doesn't shake them. It actually reassures them. They've seen the pattern, and they've studied how to survive it. That's why this next part matters. Disappearing is predictable. But detachment? That's a whole different storm. Because detachment isn't about being gone. It's about being unreachable. And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking energetically, emotionally, mentally. I'm talking about being right there, visible, alive, thriving, but inaccessible in every way that matters to them. That's the shift that breaks them down quietly, because they can see you, but they can't feel you anymore. Think about this. You ever pass by a house you used to live in? The walls are still there. The windows still reflect the light. But it's not yours anymore. You can't walk in. You can't touch anything. It's the absence of access that hits. That's what detachment looks like when you get it right. You're not gone. You're just no longer theirs. And they don't know how to process that. Because here's what happens. They still see your posts, still hear your name from mutual friends. Maybe you even cross paths one day. But when they look at you, something's different. The spark they used to recognize in your eyes when you saw them, gone. The way your energy used to shift around them, steady now. They might even test the waters. A text, a just checking in, something soft, subtle. But when you respond, if you respond, it's short, kind, but emotionally distant. No breadcrumbs, no signals, no openings. And that makes them panic. Because now they're not dealing with your absence. They're dealing with your evolution. You've changed the pattern, and they don't have the script for this version of you. That's why detachment confuses them more than silence ever could. Silence says, I'm hurt. Detachment says, I'm healed. Silence can be broken, but detachment, that's a locked gate with no key, and they know it. Let's break another lie while we're here. People always come back when they realize your worth. Nope, not always. Some come back because they miss your attention, your devotion, your effort. But your worth? That's something they only realize when they lose access and don't know how to get it back. When they feel your presence, but not your availability. Because detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's what happens when you finally understand that you don't need to chase closure or beg to be seen or prove anything to anyone who once saw you as disposable. It's when you stop using silence as a strategy and start using it as a state. You're not hiding. You're just done explaining. You're not angry. You're just uninterested. And that lack of emotional effort, that calm disinterest, that's the loudest consequence they'll ever face. You're no longer trying to make them feel something. You're just feeling everything without them. And that's powerful. That's rare. That's unfamiliar to someone who's used to watching people fall apart after being discarded. But you didn't fall apart. You fell into yourself. And here's the thing, they don't expect it to last. At first, they think it's a phase, that you're just putting on a show, that you're hurt and playing hard to get. But time passes, and your energy stays the same. You don't engage, you don't reach out, you don't react. And slowly their confidence turns into confusion, then fear, then regret. Because detachment isn't temporary like disappearing, it becomes you. It changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you choose, and they feel it. They see it in the way you don't flinch when their name is mentioned. They see it in the way you no longer light up when they enter the room. And that shift, it shakes them in places they never thought you'd touch. That's the power of detachment done right. You don't scream, "Look what you lost." You just become someone they can no longer reach. And no amount of apologies or emotional breadcrumbs can bring them back to where they once stood, because the bridge didn't burn, it disappeared. Quietly, completely, without drama. That's what breaks them. So don't just vanish, my friends. Evolve. Don't just silence the noise. Shift the energy. Don't just disappear from their life. Detach from the part of you that ever needed them to validate your existence. That's the real revolution. That's the real comeback. If you feel this in your chest, if this is lighting something inside you right now, comment below. I detach. I evolve. Let them see it. Let yourself see it. Show the world that you're no longer disappearing to be chased. You're detaching to be free. And stay with me, because next we're going deeper into how being emotionally unreachable while still present is the most addictive shift of all. That's when the real confusion begins. And trust me, they won't be ready. Number 5, you became unreachable even if you're still seen. There's nothing more haunting than seeing someone you once owned and realizing you don't move them anymore. My friends, let's talk about something that really stings them. Not the silence, not the blocking, not the goodbye message typed at midnight. No. What stings is when you're still there, but you're no longer theirs. When you didn't vanish, but became emotionally invisible. They can still see you, hear of you, maybe even scroll past your photos, but the part of you they used to feel, gone, unreachable. That energy, that warmth, that spark that always found a way back to them, it doesn't glow for them anymore. They see your name pop up, they see your posts. You're not hiding, you didn't delete yourself, but something's missing and they feel it. It's not that you've become cold, it's that you've become calm. And to someone who was addicted to your emotional reactions, that calm is terrifying. Imagine you used to swim in a pool of their chaos. Every splash they made you felt. Every wave they created you responded. But now you've stepped out. You're standing at the edge, watching, dry, peaceful, and they're still flailing in the water, waiting for you to jump back in. But you don't. Not because you're punishing them, but because you've realized the water was never safe. You've realized your peace matters more than their pattern. This, right here, This emotional presence without availability is what unravels them, because they've lost their grip on what used to be predictable. You used to flinch when they pulled away. You used to check in, decode, overthink, try harder. But now, your stillness doesn't look like waiting. It looks like moving on. And that shift? It echoes. You're still seen, but you don't respond like you used to. That's what breaks the spell. That's what makes them pause and go, wait, something's off. And they won't say it directly. Oh no, that would require humility. Instead, they'll test the edges. A like on your story, a random reaction to a post, a hey that pretends to be casual, but it's not casual. It's a signal flare. It's them trying to see if you still bleed, if there's still a crack in the wall. But what they find instead is silence, stillness, not coldness, but a door that doesn't open anymore. And it's not that you're being mean, you're being centered. There's no bitterness in your replies, only boundaries. You're not angry, you're unavailable, you're emotionally off the menu. That warmth they used to take for granted, it's not gone, it's just not theirs anymore. And that realization, it's like touching a flame and realizing it no longer burns for you. Let's break another lie while we're here. Being seen doesn't mean being available. Just because you haven't blocked them, just because you haven't disappeared from the map, doesn't mean they have access. That's what messes with them. They don't understand how someone can still be visible and still be so far away. But you're not playing hide and seek. You're just done being emotionally predictable. You're not deleting yourself. You're simply choosing not to invite them in. Because here's what they never expected: for you to heal while being present, for you to grow while being seen, for you to thrive without needing to disappear. That's what creates the confusion. They knew how to handle absence, but presence without access, that's a glitch in their system. They're used to pushing buttons and watching you light up. But now, those buttons don't work, the lights are off, and yet, you're still standing there, glowing in a way they can't reach. Quote that fits here: being visible is easy. Being untouchable while visible, that's power. You didn't vanish. You just stopped showing up emotionally. You stopped offering your soul to someone who only wanted your attention. You stopped making their curiosity your responsibility. And that shift? It's not loud. It's not flashy. But it's permanent. Because the kind of growth that happens in silence doesn't need a performance. It becomes a presence. A presence that no longer entertains temporary people. They scroll through your feed now, looking for cracks. Are they okay? Is that caption about me? Why do they seem fine? And with every post, every laugh, every photo where you look at peace, they feel the disconnection. Not because you're throwing it in their face, but because, for the first time, your life isn't centered around their absence. You're not dropping quotes for attention. You're not sending signals. You're not trying to prove anything. And that neutrality, it's the biggest threat to someone who used to feel central in your story. Now they're not even a footnote. That's what cuts. Not your silence, but your stillness. Not your distance, but your indifference. And make no mistake, they're paying attention closely. Because when someone loses access to your emotional world, they don't just lose you. They lose the power they thought they had. They lose the script. They lose the illusion. And now, they're left standing on the outside of a connection they used to control, trying to knock on doors that no longer exist. Because you've built something stronger now. You've built a life where you don't shrink to fit into their confusion, where you don't bend to be seen, where your peace is not for sale. And they're realizing that too late. They're watching you walk through life without the emotional leash they once held, and it terrifies them. Not because you're gone, but because you're free. So if you're reading this, if you've made it this far and your heart is quietly nodding, I want you to drop this in the comments right now. Seen, not available. That's your affirmation. That's your shield. That's your quiet power. Because you didn't disappear to be chased. You stayed. You stood still. And in that stillness, you became unreachable. Stay with me. Because next, we're going to explore the slow, creeping doubt that starts to eat away at them when they realize this isn't a performance. This is permanent. And that's the part they never saw coming. Number 6, they start to doubt their power. The moment they stop feeling your pull is the moment they start questioning if they ever had any gravity at all. At first, they're calm, relaxed, maybe even smug. You went silent, predictable. You stopped texting, they saw it coming. You didn't chase after they discarded you. Well, they assume you're just trying to prove a point, because in their mind, you'll come back. You always have. That's the rhythm they relied on. The emotional loop where they leave, you suffer, and then somehow, like clockwork, you reach back out. Not because you're weak, but because you care. And they knew you cared. That's what gave them confidence. That's what made them believe they still held the strings. Even in your silence, they thought they still had control. But then, something changes. Time starts ticking. A few days pass, then a week, then another. And suddenly, what they thought was just your usual emotional timeout doesn't shift. Your silence doesn't soften. Your energy doesn't crawl back. There's no cryptic story, no subtle quote, no song lyrics begging to be interpreted, nothing, just stillness, just distance, and not the kind of distance that waits to be closed, the kind that doesn't look back. And now the doubt creeps in. They start to wonder, wait, are they really done? Why haven't they posted anything sad? Why aren't they checking my stories? They check their inbox, half expecting to see your name pop up. But it doesn't. They start watching for signs, not of love, but of access, because that's what they've lost. And slowly, their confidence begins to crack. Because here's the truth, my friends. People who discard you don't always fear losing you. They fear losing their hold on you. The comfort of knowing they could always trigger a reaction, that you'd always flinch when they appeared, that you'd always look for meaning in their mixed signals. But now, that power's slipping, and it terrifies them. Imagine someone standing in front of a TV with a remote. They press the buttons, volume, channel, power, but nothing changes. No response, no feedback. It used to work every time. But now the screen just stays dark, silent, still. That's what's happening in their mind right now. They're pressing buttons they used to rely on and getting nothing. That's when panic starts whispering. What if they're really moving on? What if this isn't a phase? What if I lost them? And that last question, that's the one that hits hardest. Because let's be honest, they didn't discard you thinking they'd pay for it. They thought you'd sit in the emotional hallway, waiting for the door to reopen. But now they're realizing you're not even in the building anymore. You left. Not loudly, not dramatically. You just stopped responding. You stopped feeding their ego. You stopped handing them your pain like a gift they could unwrap whenever they got bored. And that absence of reaction, that's the wound they didn't prepare for. Let's be clear, this doubt doesn't erupt like a volcano. It seeps in, it's slow, quiet. It builds with every moment they don't hear from you. With every day your silence remains unshaken. With every post that shows peace instead of pain. That's when the questions turn inward. They don't just wonder what you're doing. They wonder why they're not part of it anymore. Because when someone loses power, the first thing they do is try to reclaim it. That's why they start sending signals, liking a photo, responding to a story, sending a random "hope you're well." It's not affection, it's a test, a fishing line tossed into the emotional sea, hoping to feel a tug. But when the line stays slack, when you don't bite, they start to unravel, slowly, quietly, but completely. Quote that slices deep right here: "The illusion of power is the easiest thing to hold until the silence proves it was never yours." And that's what your silence is doing now. It's proving that their hold was never real, that their control only existed because you allowed it. And now that you've withdrawn your permission, their confidence feels counterfeit. They're not panicking because they lost you. They're panicking because they no longer understand you. You've become unpredictable, unreadable. And to someone who thrives on control, that's unbearable. You see, they never expected you to evolve. They expected you to perform, to beg, to spiral. But you didn't. You chose dignity, stillness, distance, not to punish, but to protect. And now, that very protection is what's causing their inner collapse. Because when someone loses the power to affect your emotions, they don't feel powerful anymore. They feel exposed, vulnerable, human. And the mirror you used to hold up for them, filled with your admiration, your love, your effort, is now reflecting nothing. Just stillness, just space, just silence. And let's be honest, that's the worst kind of loss. Not the kind where someone storms out, but the kind where someone quietly closes the door and never returns. No words, no closure, just a shift so permanent that even if they scream now, it won't move you. So yes, they're starting to doubt their power, because power without access is just noise. They can talk all they want, post all they want, pretend all they want, but they can't reach you. And the realization that they don't know how to find the version of you that doesn't respond, that's the haunting. You didn't become cold. You became clear. You didn't seek revenge. You found peace. And that peace has a weight they can't carry. Because now they're the ones pacing. They're the ones hoping for a sign. They're the ones watching in silence and realizing the silence isn't temporary. So if you feel this in your soul right now, if you've lived this moment or you're in it now, I want you to type this in the comments. Their doubt, my power. That's your truth now. That's your anchor. That's your silent roar. Because next up, we're diving into the consequence they never saw coming, the one that doesn't look like revenge, but peace. And that, my friends, is the punishment they'll never forget. Stay with me. It only gets deeper from here. Number 7, your peace is the consequence they didn't see coming. They didn't think you'd get over it. They thought you'd sit in silence, waiting. But what broke them was watching you heal without them. Let me tell you something, my friends. There's a certain kind of punishment that doesn't come wrapped in fury or vengeance. It comes in stillness, in joy, in peace. It comes in the soft, quiet rhythm of someone who stopped trying to be chosen and chose themselves instead. That's the consequence they never braced for. Because they expected you to crumble. They expected your silence to be heavy with pain. They expected it to be temporary, a dramatic pause before your inevitable return. But what they got instead was your peace. And peace doesn't make noise. Peace doesn't send "I miss you" texts. Peace doesn't stalk their stories. Peace doesn't explain itself. It just is. And that's what's shaking them. See, they thought discarding you would come without a cost, that they could just drop you like a call they no longer wanted to answer, that you'd break a little, spiral, maybe go quiet for a while, but you'd be back, because that's what they've seen, that's what they've caused. They thought your silence was just part of the cycle, but your silence, it was the ending, and your peace, that was the exit wound. You didn't just go away, you started glowing, quietly, beautifully, unapologetically. They thought they'd leave you in pieces. Instead, they left you in a process that turned heartbreak into healing and silence into strength. Imagine this for a moment. A storm rolls through a forest. Trees are bent, branches broken, everything seems ruined. But give it time, and the forest doesn't just recover, it comes back stronger, the soil richer, the roots deeper, the air cleaner. That's you now. They were the storm. But you became the forest. And now, when they look at you, they don't see the destruction they expected. They see growth they can't touch. That realization hits harder than anything you could have said, because they were ready for anger. They were prepared to be hated. They expected resistance. What they didn't expect was to be forgotten, to be unbothered by you. And that's what burns now. Not your rage, but your release. Not your absence, but your indifference. You're out here living, not performing, not pretending, just being. Posting without passive-aggressive captions, laughing in pictures that aren't staged to provoke, showing up in the world with a lightness they haven't seen from you in a long time. And every piece of that energy whispers something they weren't ready to hear. I don't need you. And folks, that's the echo that keeps them up at night. Because now they start tracing every step backward, wondering when you stopped hoping, wondering when your silence stopped being about them, wondering how they missed the signs that you were really truly letting go, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. That's what makes peace so dangerous to the ones who mistreated you, because peace can't be negotiated with, it can't be baited, it can't be pulled back into a performance. Peace doesn't check if they're watching. Peace doesn't wait to be validated, it validates itself. They might try to come back, softly, subtly, a comment here, a like there, maybe a vague message hoping to catch your curiosity. But the energy has shifted, and they can feel it. The door that used to creak open with just a little effort doesn't open anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because you're healed. And healed people don't play the same games. That's the consequence. Not that you yelled, not that you cursed them out, not that you exposed them, but that you moved on quietly. You became someone they no longer recognize because you stopped giving them the version of you that tolerated disrespect. You are no longer a chapter in their story. You are the author of your own, and they no longer get to edit the pages. Let me break one more lie while we're here. The lie that peace is passive. No, my friends, peace is powerful. Peace is a decision. It's standing in front of everything that broke you and saying, you don't get to break me twice. Peace is you reclaiming every ounce of energy you wasted, trying to be seen by someone who closed their eyes when they had you. And now they're the ones squinting, trying to read between the lines, looking for pain in your pictures, waiting for clues in your captions. But you're not speaking their language anymore. You're not narrating your healing, you're just living it. And that silence, that steady, radiant calm, it's the loudest message they've ever received. They'll feel it, not in a moment, but over time, in the quiet spaces where they expect a notification from you and none comes, in the days that pass without your name appearing, in the realization that you no longer orbit around their presence, that you no longer respond to their energy, that you've become the thing they thought they could survive losing, but never imagined watching flourish without them. Because peace is permanent when it's real. And yours is rooted now, deep, unshakable. So if you're feeling this, if your silence has started turning into serenity, if your peace is finally outweighing your pain, I want you to pause and type this in the comments. My peace is my power. Say it, show it, speak it over your life. And if this message hit home, if it reminded you of who you are and how far you've come, do this one thing for yourself right now. Press the like button and subscribe. because this journey you're not walking it alone. Every week, I'll be right here with you, bringing you strategies, stories, and truth bombs that help you turn heartbreak into clarity, silence into strength, and pain into the most powerful version of you. You're not just surviving anymore. You're evolving. You're rising. You're becoming untouchable. And trust me, they're starting to realize it. Stay silent, stay grounded, stay powerful. We're just getting started.